Steve Whittle, men's mental health advocate and founder of Tough to Talk. No one really gets into this space just on a whim. So how did you become such a profound voice in this area?
I think about my partner, my boys, my family, and I think about what they would have gone through had I died by suicide, which was my experience. Ultimately, I had a series of lived experiences that led me to believe that I had no value, no purpose, and that the best thing for everybody was that I died by suicide. And lots of anecdotal evidence and lots of studies are showing that the majority of men who die by suicide are the silent majority of men. Now, when these people then get to such a low point, it often always boils down to two things. What is my value? What is my purpose? When they lose value, when they lose purpose, they feel like a burden. And then they spiral out of control, most of these men. They go, well, actually, if I have no value, no purpose, and I'm a burden to everybody, everyone would be better off I wasn't here. And then that's when the real mental health problems really start to kick in.
Why is it, first of all, that men attribute such importance to purpose and their role in life as opposed to women?
Sadly, we're taught by peers, role models, great people in our lives that being a man is about being strong and stoic, a protector, a provider, and sadly, silent. We see it all the time, we see a young boy fall over, get picked up by a role model, and it's all meant in the nicest possible way. A role model will pick them up and stand them up and say, you're all right, buddy, it doesn't hurt, you've got this. And this child is crying, and he says, it's okay, you're going to be all right, come on, run it off. And they do run it off. And that young child's just been told, actually, this does hurt, but you're telling me it doesn't hurt. Okay, I get it. Then they see a young girl fall over and they get picked up and the young girl gets cuddled and embraced. And what we're teaching young boys in that moment, and many moments like that throughout children's lives as they're growing up, is your pain is not as important as her pain. And so this is what gets fed into us as men and boys as we're growing up, right? Yeah. That we should be strong and silent and protectors because their pain is more important than our pain. We get brought up to that in this generational gender bias. And this narrative gets fed into us by social media and the media. We go into schools and we talk to young men who are coming up, and it breaks my heart when they sit there and tell me that they struggle to express themselves and talk about masculinity because they're shot down because they're being told that they are toxic or fragile, and I mean, toxic and fragile masculinity, when did that become like the be-all and end-all of masculinity, all right? And we certainly should stop defining masculinity as toxic or fragile, because the young people are now going even more silent because they are afraid to speak up. Because if they speak up about their masculinity and how they're feeling, a lot of the time they get shut down because they are fragile. Mm. And you go, no, they're not fragile. They're genuinely worried about something. They just happen to be a man.
Yeah.
And we would never do this to females.
There's this narrative that men are toxic, men are trash, and that's all you hear. And so you alluded to it earlier, but what effect does that have on the people that are growing up and consuming that content? Where do they go then?
We're getting more and more men who are going more and more silent and are in more danger of harm. Because there are some really serious factors out there that affect men. We always hear about the issues that men provide for women. Mm. But what about the issues that men provide for themselves as well? Because men are much more likely to be a victim of a violent crime. Mm. When you look at if you speak to any room of men under the age of 50, you can quite easily and confidently say to those, the person who's most likely to take your life is yourself. So when you start to look at these, you're most likely to be incarcerated if you're a man. You're most likely to be a victim of violent crime, most likely to die by suicide. You're much more likely to fall behind in every aspect of education in school now. So all of these things are affecting men and young boys. But if we're constantly telling men that they are, as in your words, trash or toxic or fragile, mm-hmm. or you're bad, just generally bad, those other issues won't get spoken about either. Mm-hmm. And so we need to stop doing that. And most men, especially those who are struggling, don't think they have a mental health problem. They have they've had a wife who's left them problem. I'm not seeing my kids problem. I have a debt problem. I have a loneliness problem. I have a drugs problem. I have an alcohol problem. None of those things are associated with themselves as a mental health problem. So we help them translate their content to appeal to more men. Like if you say to most men, if you had a problem, what's the best thing you can do about it? They would say, well, obviously talk to someone. Brilliant. Are you going to talk to someone? They go, no. No, because they know the right things to do. So when you say to people, it's okay to not be okay, when you say that to most women, you know that there's a WhatsApp group getting set up, there's cups of tea being had, okay, and there is more to the story. When you say to most men, it's okay to not be okay, they go, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just sit here in my own crap because I know it's okay not to be okay because you keep telling me that I'm not okay. In most organizations, the same people who need to know if you are having a mental health problem, financial problem, a relationship issue, or something else that they're saying, listen, please tell us and we'll support you, are the same people who are responsible for hiring, firing, your next project, and so yeah, I'm going to tell the same people who are responsible for my for my financial well-being about my personal well-being. No, because it's not that. There shouldn't be the same people. Okay, so it should be. It's a public health issue, not a HR issue.
Hearing everything you've spoken about at great length, it sounds like it all comes from your story and where you've come from. Now, I've done my research on your story, but what's one thing that you think people don't really ask about it, or one thing that you wish more people would hear about your story?
Oh my God, I've never even thought about my story in that way, to think about what I wish someone would ask. One of the things to always remember is that most men who are struggling with thoughts of suicide are wearing the best mask in the world, and they are showing you what they think they want. They think that you need to see for you not to push them. Okay, so I guess one of the things I'd wished people had seen was beyond that mask. Maybe had spent a little bit more time asking me questions about the things that I'm going on in my life.
What do you still, looking back, carry from that? Not talking about your learnings, but what do you still carry with it on the daily?
Oh, okay. So I still walk my dog the same route, and I still see the same place, and as I approach it, I still think about the same things that I used to think about before. How would I do it? Where would I step? How, all those things about, because it was all very systematically thought out in my head how I would do that. But what's different now is that I know I'm not going to do it, and it's kind of like a response to being in that space. Okay. And I know that if I ever felt really low, I would never go to that place, and so I still do it, and it kind of it's kind of constant reminder of how far I've come now away from there. This is a really poor brag for men, right? But men are really good at planning their own suicide, and anecdotally speaking to hundreds of men now who have planned their own suicide, the detail in which they go through when they plan it, to dry runs, to timings, and all of those things in their lives. So whenever I see people in those spaces now, I just never ever stop. I never ever not stop. I just always talk to someone, engage with them, and just let them know. Just let them know it's okay. Everything's okay, no matter
If I brought in to this podcast studio 15-year-old Steve,
yeah,
what would you tell him about what it means now that you know to be a man?
I would definitely speak to him about his ego, and to manage his ego. The only person who should care about how fast he runs, how much he lifts, how good he is at maths, You know, the only person who should care about those things is him. He shouldn't worry about what anybody else thinks. Say, listen, what are you comfortable with? Get comfortable with your ego, because for a lot of men, we because we're not getting this synaptic feedback from people around us about how well we're doing as men, because no one's telling us, right? We just build it up in our heads, and our egos take a really good kicking when we don't think we're doing something right. And so I would definitely say, listen, just check your ego and be comfortable with who you are as a man, you know. For a lot of men, we are just silently trying to meet unrealistic societal expectations, and we just need to check that.
As you know, the Centre for Social Justice published a report on the generation of lost boys that we're raising, saying that 41% of sixth form students have been taught in school that boys are a problem for girls. Women earn now 9% more than men, aged 16 to 24, which is a reversal in gender pay gap.
Yeah.
There's been a 40% increase in NEET, that's not in employment, educational training, for men aged 16 to 24, whereas it's 7% for women. And boys underperform academically at every stage from nursery to university. If you had a magic wand and you needed to reverse that so that we're not raising this generation of lost boys, what would be the first step that you take?
Okay, well, the first thing I'd do is I'd get women on side. Allyship is spoken about so much, but often allyship is only ever spoken about one way. How can men be better allies for women, right? But let's be super clear right now, right? The women's liberation movement and the feminist movement since the 1970s, okay, has done bloody brilliant, okay, and they've really showed men what is possible, you know, and
100%.
and I truly admire them all, and I love it, right? Because women today have just gone on to show that they can be economic providers and caregivers, and they've defined what that looks like. And sadly, we haven't invested the same level of intensity in men and boys. So men and boys who had historically were the providers, okay, and protectors, okay, are now falling by the wayside, and they haven't caught up. Men, stop feeling sorry for yourself. You need to be financial providers and caregivers, because women are financial providers and caregivers. They don't need us for financial support anymore. Okay, they figured it out. So let's join them on the same, the same table, the same playing field, right? That's how we do it. We come together as a society to do that.
Brilliant. Steve, we have a closing tradition on this podcast, which is where the guest, regardless of who they are, answers this one question. No. And that is, what is one message that you've never sent but you wish everyone would receive?
I think you matter, and I think we should talk. Call me back.
Steve, thank you for your time. I can't thank you enough for being so open, so vulnerable, telling me about all of your thoughts and how we can really get everyone all on the same level and make sure all ships rise on a high tide. I really appreciate your time, because I think this is such a profound conversation that we should all be having, especially in times like this. So thank you very much for your time.
No, thanks for having me.
Cheers.